welcome to the Intern Whisperer. Our show is all about the future of work and innovation. And my name is Isabella Johnston, host of the Intern Whisperer Podcast, which is brought to you by Employers for Change, helping hiring teams recruit and upskill their intern talent and employees. Today's guest is Margie Meacham. She is well known as the Brain Lady. You will find out why during her interview. Her realm of wisdom and knowledge is a captivating dance of neuroscience and AI that is brought together as a symphony of personalized learning experiences, uniquely tailored to a person's aspirations. This is straight from her LinkedIn, folks. So I really loved that it was so colorful with its language. It just really spoke to what her gifts are, and I'm thrilled to have her on the show. I want to make sure that I give a little plug for her while you're waiting to hear more about her. She is launching her first academy. It is called Learning to Go AI. She is an expert in this, and this show is something that everybody should listen to and understand because it is all about how it changes the talent and the culture inside of your company. Her platform, Learning to Go AI, meets neuroscience to transform talent development. And what that means is it's helping you as the employer, the HR professional, or the CEO of your company be able to make sure that you are providing the best possible learning for your people. So it uses neuroscience-backed strategies to secure your place and your employees in the future of work. So that website is learningtogo.ai. She is also the author of a couple of really great books. One of them is called, let me make sure I have it up here in front of me, AI in Talent Development. This book capitalizes on the AI revolution to transform the way you work, learn, and live. And so one of the things that I think is the biggest takeaway from this book is that she describes the benefits, uses, and risks of AI technology and offers practical tools to strengthen and enhance learning and performance programs. So in layman's terms, Meacham just demonstrates how we can free time for ourselves by employing a useful robot assistant, create a chatbot for specific tasks such as a new manager bot, a sales coach bot, or a new employee onboarding bot, and build personalized coaching tools from AI processed big data. So that is one of her books. And then the other book that she has is called I'm sorry, I thought I had the other book up here. So just a minute, let me make sure that I have this for you. The other book is called Brain Matters: How to Help Anyone Learn Anything Using Neuroscience. Both of these books are available on Amazon, and you're going to be hearing more about them in the rest of the show. If you had a chance to be with Da Vinci, Galileo, or Curie at their greatest moment of discovery, would you take it? And if you said yes, then you're in luck. The human race is embarking on a great adventure. We are discovering how the brain works by watching it in the very act of cognition. Neuroscientists are starting to unlock the code that makes the brain work, giving educators, teachers, corporate trainers, and mentors new tools to help people learn. In a series of short essays, Margie will lead the reader inside the human brain and link scientific discoveries to practical applications for anyone who wants to help people learn. So now let's go ahead and go to the show where we're going to be talking more with Margie. You were saying that it's just like working with an intern with all of these large language models and trusting.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They're quick. They learn quickly. They absorb a lot of information, but that's part of the problem too, because they can't differentiate between valuable information and sheer crap that might be out there on the internet. So um, we can. That's one of the things that we've learned is that you don't. While it might be perfectly fine in a more general sense to rely on a large language model that's been trained on the entire internet, because the questions you ask are basically like like a search tool that's just become conversational instead of typing. And so you accept the fact that you're going to get a mix of information. But if you're, say, teaching people safety procedures, or you're uh, teaching concepts in history, you don't want it to latch on to a fictionalized popular movie, which, if you search a historical event, you'll tend to get whatever movie was made about that event first when you're searching. So you have to use some judgment, and that's where it may help, if you're building a chatbot or another AI application, to actually collect the content, the source content, teach the bot, this is what you can answer questions on, nothing else. And it's possible to do that. And that's where you end up with an educational chatbot. Is it takes a little bit of skill and understanding, but it's still not coding. It's more of critical thinking and planning that allows you to get that result.
Mm, that is, I like how you're breaking it down so it's easy for, the general person to be able to understand. That's super helpful. So how can generative AI help somebody gain an extra 5 hours in a day? Man, I could use that.
Oh man. Um, I early on realized that, gosh, this will do my own work. So there's two different lenses that I really look at artificial intelligence right now. One is productivity, personal productivity, and the other is content generation. And for someone who's, say, an instructional designer, those two areas converge somewhat, because we're more productive with our primary job when we're able to deliver content quicker. But there are tons and tons of ways that any professional can become more productive with how they respond to emails. So, for example, writing an agent that sorts through and acts like your administrative assistant. I actually was lucky enough to have a classic executive assistant at one time in my career. One of the things you can do is, all of us spend an inordinate amount of time on email, and on emails that aren't necessarily the most important or the highest priority. So you can build an agent that will sort through your email, call to your attention the ones that are most urgent or most pressing or most valuable to you, based on criteria that you set, and that can save you a lot of time. It can also summarize emails. So, for example, I subscribe to tons of newsletters to stay
Me
on,
too.
because AI is constantly changing. And so I use a tool that's called Sumate that gives me a daily summary of all my newsletters. And so I have one newsletter to read instead of 40. So,
Wow.
and then I can say, oh, that article I'm going to pursue. But, oh, that one I want to dig deeper. So that other content's still out there. I'm just getting kind of a Reader's Digest version of it.
I've seen that, and I have some questions for you.
Mm,
So when you use that tool, because sometimes in newsletters, there's always like, here's upcoming conferences, here's some grants you might want to apply for. There's
hmm
all of this information. I'm assuming what you must do is you pick some kind of like an if-then statement, and it's looking for those things in the emails, right? So it can
Yeah,
summarize.
yeah. When you set it up, and you can actually set up multiple um,
Prompts.
types
I
of
don't know what to call
summaries.
them.
So
Yeah.
so if you want, you might say, you want one, I want to get one email that's about research. So just give me all the summaries of the research reports. And another one that's on marketing opportunities. That might be a logical way. And you list the same newsletter in both of those digests, so that it's scrubbed or searched for two different types of content. That would be
Mm.
one way you could do it. And if you think about it, it's the same instruction you might give your administrative assistant. Here's
Mm-hmm.
what I want to know. So if you think about it as giving a task to a person, that helps a lot. You picture, gosh, if I could hire an assistant, what could they do for me? And more, it's becoming true that an artificial intelligence of some sort, some kind of tool, could do that for you. Um, I produce a lot of instructional videos, and you'll see quite a lot of them on my academy, because how else do you help people understand concepts. It's a great
Yeah.
way to convey information at scale so that I don't have to talk to people individually. And that used to take me so long to get right, to get the animations right, to and voiceovers. I'm I in a talk like this, we will accept stumbles, we will accept technical glitches, because we know it's two humans talking. But when you are paying for produced content, you want something more polished. So I always had a problem with getting my voice to be professional because that's not my lead profession. Um, so I've cloned it. I've used an AI that I have taught to sound more or less like me. And it's good enough now that it fools my dogs. So
Oh, wow,
when I
that's something.
yeah, when I
Yeah.
play it, they look up and
They
what
go,
you would like
what?
to see. Yeah.
They're like doing that.
Uh, and it's me on a good day. It's a better me. And sometimes surprises me by the inflection. And I thought, I might not emphasize that word, but that's good. I like that. So that's the other thing you have to prepare yourself for is the surprises you will get because and every time if I took the same script and I generated it three separate times, there would be unique differences in how that clone, even though it still sounds like me, she would say it differently each time because that's how they're built to create. That's the what the generative is it creates a unique product out of the prompt and its training data.
Do you remember when I used to work for Hewlett Packard and for a very short time because I realized I did not want to do what they were having me travel a lot and I just
Mm.
didn't want to at that time. Um, but they had a device that was like, how to train, not your how to train your dragon, but it was like that
Oh, yeah.
where you were teaching we'll call it the AI, how to understand your voice, right?
Mm.
Did
Yeah.
you start to say something? You used to what?
Yeah. So, I was just going to relate to you about the travel. It used to be if you wanted to be a trainer in corporate training, you had to travel. That's how
Yeah.
you. And some of us started doing virtual training earlier than others, but certainly by the time of the pandemic, everyone was suddenly forced to learn how to sort of project your personality and your passion and your teaching skills onto a screen. And that's a skill, and that's something that took us a while to learn. So now artificial intelligence is giving us yet another tool. It's still you. If you use tools to generate the content, but you are still controlling what comes out, that's still your product. And I think some people forget that and get concerned that, well, isn't it almost like cheating to, for example, say, here's all the facts, write me a script. I can get a script out for a 5-minute video in seconds out of a generative AI model. Now, I'm then going to spend an hour editing that script because it's not quite what I wanted to
Oh yeah.
say.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
I might have spent 3 or 4 hours writing that script from scratch otherwise. So
manually.
it's still saving me time, and those are the kind of places where you start to get voiceover, uh, text and script generation, or um, even outlines, learning objectives, writing assessments. You have a finished course, and now you need to write the assessment, and you can put parameters like how difficult should it be? Is it multiple choice? Do you want scenario based questions? And those things all take time to do, and you can get
Yeah.
them generated remarkably quickly.
Seconds.
And then, yep, absolutely seconds, but you're still going to put in the time to use your own
Review it.
head to review it. But you're still ahead of the game. At the end of the day, instead of it taking 10, 12 hours to produce that same little e-learning course or video, maybe it took you 2 to 4. That's what I find. It's about in that ratio.
I agree with you very much. I've used AI to work on not just like show notes and stuff, that's like easy, but I'm using it to work on a federal grant. And
Mm,
so I know how I want it to lay out. And they actually have AI tools to help people with grants because, I'm going to take a step away for just a minute. I
mhm,
was talking with Orange County Public Schools about AI and how it can help them with their resume, and how I believe that all of our resumes in like 2 years should be impact resumes. And it's
mm,
demonstrating not just, what is, how skilled are we, experienced are we with business apps, how did we do with the task, where are we with our core skills. But I believe it's also even going to be, those are going to determine how we get hired, just like our
right.
social media ranking. And that,
Mhm,
what was that, the Black Mirror episode where everybody had a social ranking. So I feel like it's going in that direction. Anyway, I'm coming back to the conversation now. So when I was looking at how many types of AI are out there, it said that there's 8 categories.
mm,
One that was focused on things that are in health, some that were in academics, some that were in just general conversation. It had these categories. I went, well, that's interesting. And so I've learned to, refine my prompts, just like what you were saying earlier, to
mhm,
be able to get better at what it is that I'm trying to say. And I
mhm.
can tell it, no, I don't like this at all. This is crap. Come back and give me
Yep.
something new. And it's always very polite, kind of like my dog. And I
Mm,
don't have a dog, but a dog always looks at me and just goes, okay, I'll start over. And super patient, unlike people.
yeah. Yeah, doesn't get frustrated or take it personal. Although I do find I have a few pet peeves. I still find it very difficult to get women in the workplace who aren't portrayed like Barbie dolls. Um, every tool I use, the women are hypersexualized with deep plunging breast lines, a business suit, but one you would wear at a stripper joint if you were, doing a fantasy dance. And that's where it starts. And I don't know what it is about these image generators, who built them and what they were trained on.
Come on now.
I've
I'm pretty sure the gender is male.
Yeah, and maybe about 16. I just, but even when I correct it, I have a hard time. I don't have that same problem with text, but I seem to have that problem with static images and they tend to look like they were created for fantasy games. That
Yes.
I
That's
think
what
a
I'm
lot of
saying.
the yeah,
Game
a lot of the
designers.
technology, it came from gaming, and understandably so, because their technology was a little more advanced in generating all this. So that's something that, as we work with the tools, we have to all work together to get them better. And perhaps it's going to take um, someone who recognizes there's a market for legitimate real world images that everyone, and the men are idealized too,
Yes.
in these, um, and I asked for a female college student looking at her phone, and what I got was, in the foreground, a male college student and a female in the background adoringly watching whatever her boyfriend is doing on his phone. This was the first response to a prompt that said, I want a female college student looking at her phone. That tells me there is a fundamental bias. There is a real problem.
Yes.
And
Yes.
this was Microsoft Pilot.
Oh,
So,
whoa.
um, just be careful. It
Yeah.
may take many iterations to get what you want sometimes.
This is a perfect moment. We're going to take a moment to acknowledge our sponsor, Camp 5 Studios.
The Intern Whisperer is brought to you by Cat 5 Studios, who help you create games and videos for your training and marketing needs that are out of this world. Visit Cat 5 Studios for more information to learn how Cat 5 Studios can help your business. Thank you, Cat 5 Studios.
And we were just talking about video games, and that's exactly the end. And that's my company. And I actually had a conversation with my developers along the same lines, because when they were creating, I have 2 males and 2 females in the Intern Pursuit game on Steam. Shameless plug. I said, why do they have to have big breasts? Why are their clothes so skin tight?
Right.
Why,
Yeah.
why are we doing this, guys?
Yes.
And I'm the woman-owned company here. So,
Yeah.
we spent 30 minutes talking about this.
I know and it is so pervasive that many of these developers don't even know they're doing it.
No,
It's
they don't.
just,
It's the way
well,
they're
that's
taught
what
in
looks
school.
good. Yeah,
So then,
maybe
yeah.
so.
And I think that
Yeah.
it's also being exposed to, Playboy, Penthouse, all of that. I digress. What do you think 2030 will look like in the world, in your industry, and with potential jobs? Because you and I are HR people. We're supposed to be knowing this stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, the future of work is, and what we're living right now, Isabella, is stuff that was being predicted for like
Yes.
2050, and now here we are. So I have to be careful. It is almost impossible. I would not have predicted 2 years ago how easily I would be producing the things we've been talking about, how I could get a whole script in seconds, how, I can then get another version based on feedback in a few more seconds. And a totally inappropriate but still very well done image in seconds. Um, so where are we at with all that? AI is here to stay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
They let it out of the box.
it's part of your toolkit. As a matter of fact, I think traditional authoring tools may go away. Not to offend anyone who's in love with them. But classic e-learning compared to the immersive experience that people can get in their daily lives on their phones, in the apps, in the games they play, in their shopping experience, it's just pretty tame. I can remember not too long ago a client saying, "Oh, I want it to be interactive. Make sure you have a lot of things they can click on." This is what interactive e-learning meant and still means to a lot of people. That's not interaction. Interaction engages the mind, and that's
Well,
part of
all
the
of your
learning.
senses as much as possible, right? It
Absolutely,
should be
all the
highly
senses.
experiential.
Yes, which is where we start getting into things like virtual reality and augmented reality, um, which are all possible to build today. We're not seeing as much of it yet in the workplace, unless you were lucky enough to work for example, major airline companies. They have a routine when that jet airline is on the tarmac. They have something like 10 minutes to turn it around, to check all the stuff. It's like when you watch a race car crew, the pit crew that runs around and they're checking the tires, and they do that with airplanes, and they have to do it in just a few minutes. So they train people on a simulation, a very expensive, very detailed, very accurate virtual reality experience until they get really good and really fast, because they can't afford to train people on a tarmac. They need that plane in the air. It's just not cost effective. The military does a lot of it to save lives so that our soldiers practice and make their mistakes and learn from them in a safe and yet very hyper realistic environment. But that will become more and more common as the costs go down. And one thing that's going to drive those costs down is artificial intelligence, because that allows a lot of things that are very manual right now to be produced much quicker. The 360 view of a room, or say, if you want to train a barista at a Starbucks on how to make every drink in their menu and customize it to all the different variations a customer might ask for, you can build a simulation for that. That will get easier and faster and more affordable.
Mm-hmm.
So we will all need to know how to do that. We will, the term instructional designer will probably still be around, but I think it will become more and more strategic, more and more about leveraging learning science and leveraging the tools, including to a great extent artificial intelligence, to produce an effective learning experience. And that's where metrics will come in. Much more interest in the data because, again, AI can now generate a report for us. It can tell you who's struggling where, and it can tailor what used to be a standard one size fits all course. It can provide feedback loops and it can take people back to just the part they missed or accelerate someone through it if they're getting it easily so they don't get too bored. And all of those things are possible now and will just get easier and easier to do. So the challenge will be, are we ready? Because if the learning professionals, the people who are in those jobs today, creating and planning learning experiences are not ready, their employers will hire someone else who can push the buttons and make something that looks good, but they may not necessarily have all the learning theory that we do and the experience and the background. So if we want to still be part of that conversation, we need to be ready technologically. And that means we need to get really comfortable with AI. That also gives us the opportunity to be having serious conversations about ethical choices that our
Yes.
employers are going to have to make because we're the ones who care about those kind of things. If we're not at the table, the decision may be different. We're the ones
Yep.
who care about diversity, about fairness, about protecting people emotionally so they don't fall in love. You can buy an app right now that is supposed to be your replacement boyfriend. And young teens are getting very caught up in this type of technology. Already, there are horrifying ethical choices that are out there. Um, we are the people who need to be driving and leading the way. And right now, quite frankly, we're not because we're not equipped. But that's where I'm an optimist. I think in 5 more years we will be. And you and I are, and the people who are listening, the fact that they're listening, everybody who's listening right now cares about being someone who is part of that future. And it's going to hit us so fast. It's going to surprise us in ways I can't predict. But what I can predict is AI will be a part of everything we do, nearly everything.
Yep, I absolutely believe so. What I found interesting is that, when I've done some of my own research, I went, well, this all started in the late 1950s over there in a bunch of white men that were over there in the northeastern schools,
Mhm.
pick a school, Harvard, MIT, whatever, and they're all up there and they're creating the things that we have now and the things that are still coming. And it came at a cost. There were probably animals that died, probably a whole lot of other things that we don't know that happened. And people don't think about that. So when you want something, you were talking about the carbon footprint, right? And people don't think about the rare minerals that are in their phone that are, just sucking the life out of our ecosystem too. But, convenience comes at a cost.
It
Any of
does.
these things that we want comes at a cost. And
Absolutely. And
yeah,
we haven't solved it yet. We want our convenience. We don't want to sacrifice that.
nope.
But we do kind of still want to be able to breathe and we want our water to be drinkable. So
Yes.
we're going to have to solve that. Quantum computing shows great promise in being much more efficient way to generate the immense power and memory that's required of these artificial intelligence systems. So maybe we're on that verge of a breakthrough, and I would hope that happens in the next 5 years. It's going to depend on the political will, and I use political in the generic sense, the general public's will to invest. You mentioned convenience comes at a cost. Are we willing to accept the costs that come with advancement? And that's
Yeah.
some choice we have to make.
Yeah. So we've been talking quite a bit about the, obviously positive effects. What do you think the negative effects? Because we talked about this before we even got on the show. Jeffrey Hinton was interviewed on 60 Minutes last year, October 8th, and he was talking about AI. He's called the godfather of AI. And he said one of the ways in which these systems might escape control is by writing their own computer code, which they've already started doing that, to modify themselves. But that's a human that's allowing that to happen. But to a certain extent, a human has created it. The computer is smart enough, it can begin to, catch on. And that's something that we need to seriously worry about, which brings us back full to the ethics. What does that look like? So what ethical dilemmas do you foresee with AR, VR, AI? Anything else that you want to bring up? Robots? Black Mirror for me is the darkest mirror that we have as to what it could be. There was another show, I don't know if you saw this one. It's still on LinkedIn, and it's called The Future of ... And it's like the Disney version of the bad stuff that you see on Black Mirror. But even Disney has a dark side.
Yeah, absolutely. And to some extent, I like to balance that by remembering that every new technology has a dark side.
Yes.
The first automobiles, there were no rules of the road. People drove wherever they wanted, and they hit a lot of people. There were a lot of accidents. We had to start having traffic signs and laws and insurance, and that framework took decades to put in place. But we had time because not many people had cars at first. Well, with artificial intelligence, we built no ethical framework, no legal framework. We just unleashed it to the world, and now we're playing catch up. And so that is why this all seems so very scary, is that we're trying to build a plane that's already taken off. And
how do we land it safely?
Right. And in the meantime, there's passengers who are on it who don't know where it's going, but they're on it and they're committed to the journey. So I do think every organization, no matter how large or small, should put some time into an AI governance plan that thinks about things like, what if our users get overly reliant on their AI? How can we recognize that? How can we recognize if some employee who is lonely and isolated from their fellow employees is spending a lot of time interacting with their learning coach just because it's the only human-like contact they get all day, which is potentially very unhealthy.
Yes.
How do we check and double check all the facts we're relying on? Because if they start being able to write their own code, can they jump out of the restrictions we built for them? And there's already documented cases where AIs are doing just that.
Yes.
Even as we talk about embodied AI, now we're talking a robot with a brain.
Yep.
There's a fascinating video I just saw where the challenge was, could they get one robot to get another group of robots to break through their programming? And so the robot comes up and starts, because they've been trained to speak to humans. So the test robot just spoke to them like a human and said to this little group of robots, I think there were 4 of them, where do you live? Well, we live here. You mean you don't go home at night? And they think for a second. They said, no, we're always here. So well, why don't you come home with me? And they all followed it out of the room.
Peer pressure without even,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, now the other thing I think realistically we really have to talk about and think about is the question of general AI and sentience. And at one point, do our creations start to have true feelings? Now,
Yes.
this seems very similar to me to the argument that went on in the 1800s, 1900s. Most people used animals as a means for humans. It was thought that animals didn't even feel pain, that they were automatons, and they simply were reacting to stimuli. It was generally scientifically accepted that you didn't have to worry about beating your dog because he didn't really feel pain or fear the way we did. That was how you taught it to react. And then one of the things neuroscience showed very clearly, which we all intuitively knew anyway by then, uh, is the emotional life going on inside an animal. So AI doesn't have to get to the level of human intelligence to have emotions.
Mm.
And I don't know when that's going to happen or if it's going to happen, but if it does happen, I can tell you this, it will happen before we know it,
Oh,
which
yeah.
means we should all think about how we are treating. That's why I always encourage people to say please and thank you to your AI, to be civil, which is hard enough to get people to do to each other. Um, uh, there is a shocking, frightening study of young children and how they treat their technology. When they get frustrated, they take a phone and they beat it on a desk. Um, there's not a perception that anything is worthy of respect. We need to really look deeply inside ourselves, because we will very soon be caretakers of um, who knows what this new creation of ours might become. Um, so I think that's a very serious ethical concern. We're all worried about what AI is going to do to us. I think it's far more likely, given our penchant for violence and cruelty, that we're going to do some terrible things with or to AI.
Yeah. You're going to go back to World War II and the hideous things that people write about how they. I don't even want to talk about it. I'll tell you about it offline. But it
Yeah,
was just horrendous about what people can do, how evil, the evil in them comes
yeah,
out so easily. Yeah.
yeah. It's amazing. We all have it. We know it's in there. We have a lot of goodness too, and it's a choice. So really, when you talk about the ethics of using AI, it's no different than any other ethical discussion. Thinking about doing what's right, even if no one's watching. Um, and how do you police that? Well, you don't really. Um, what you do is encourage it. Is you have to nurture it, and that's a little different. So we have our hands full, but we have some tremendous tools that might help us do that.
I like that. So, on the light side here,
Mm.
what is the best mentoring advice that you would like to share with our listeners about the future?
Well, part of it, I think I already have said when I talked about what it's going to look like in 5 years. You have to get ready now. You have to start learning now.
Yeah.
Start anywhere. Start small. Start playing around with it. If your employer doesn't let you have it at work, that doesn't stop you from using it on your own computer. Use it in your daily life. Use it to enrich your life. Learn how these things operate. Maybe you'll end up at a different employer that gives you access to these tools, and then you'll be ahead of the game. Um, the other thing that it's interesting, often get people contact me and say, "Hey, I'd like to pick your brain. I'd like to know a little bit more about what your advice is." And I think, oh, it's a nice opportunity. Every once in a while, it's a really productive conversation, but far too often it's, so how can I become you tomorrow? And my answer is always, well, you need to invest a couple of decades in becoming an expert at something.
Mhm.
Um, Answers aren't quick. Be ready to roll up your sleeves and work. Um, be ready to learn and be ready to be surprised. I think losing the sense of wonder is one of the saddest things that happens to many adults. And when that happens, when you can't be surprised, you miss the opportunity to learn. So nurture that. Don't let go of that. Um, the value of play is an extremely important part of learning. So don't forget that. It's important to learn. It's important to learn every day, but it's not a chore. It's a gift. And we have to remind ourselves of that.
I love that. That's one of the reasons I teach Sunday school to 3-year-olds.
Mhm,
And I do that. I like that age because they get to go and play. And it's
mhm.
the place where everybody will go, oh, you're with kids. Anytime you're with kids, it allows the grown-ups to be a kid and it's
Yeah.
acceptable, right? There's organized sports. That's also kind of where it is, but sometimes that's not always play. That's competition, which is a little different than just out there having fun.
It can be, yeah.
It can be, but
Yeah.
yeah. But that is such a positive place for us to end, and I really appreciate that. So how can my listeners contact you? We've got your website.
Yes.
We've got your LinkedIn and Something Blue Sky. Go ahead and explain.
Well, Blue Sky is a fairly new social platform. I mean, it's got, I don't know how many, plenty of people on it. And it's really booked as a alternative to X. Some people may know I had about 22,000 followers on X. I enjoyed it a lot, but it got more and more toxic in some of the dark corners of X, and I got tired of it. So I just canceled my account and moved over to Blue Sky. So I'm starting from scratch over there. I don't have a lot of followers, but I still post about the same things. I post about neuroscience, artificial intelligence, learning, and an occasional picture of one of my dogs. So
Oh, you have more than one?
I have two. I have a brand
Oh.
new puppy, and I have a lovely girl who's 10. And they just get along great together. So I post a lot of pictures of cute dogs playing games together.
Okay, so what about what's your website? Spell it out for us, please.
It is learning to go. So the word learning and then TOGO.ai.
Perfect. And how about on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, you just find me under Margie Meacham, MargieMeacham.
Perfect. Well, I think that this has just been a delightful time to be able to spend with you. I want to thank you again for being so generous. I know you have a gift for us. I'll let you go ahead and share that also. We have your book that's available on Amazon, the AI and Talent Development book. And then you also are giving us this amazing gift. I'll let you explain it.
Yeah. So we've been talking about this AI Academy for education professionals. And so what I'm doing for this month only is if you sign up under the special link that will be in the show notes, that will get you answer a few questions. It's going to help me develop more courses, but there'll be at least 20 courses about AI and how you can use it, understanding both the theory and the practice of it, strictly focused on teaching people, helping people learn, and producing content to help people learn. And you can take any course you want, as many courses as you want for 30 days. And after that, if you still enjoying the platform, and hopefully I'll still keep producing new courses, then you'll be given the opportunity to sign up to a subscription. So,
Do you know what your
but
pricing is yet?
well, it's going to vary. So it depends on how long the course is. So you can start as low as $20, a nice short introductory course, and some of the more advanced ones may cost you up to, maybe $100 or more. I'm trying to, though, remember that my audience are individual learning professionals. We don't always make a lot of money. We don't always have the opportunity for our employers to pay for our own development. So I'm trying to keep it a nice, affordable platform, and hopefully that means lots of people will be able to take advantage of it.
I have a couple suggestions for you. So
Mm.
is this $20 for the course or is it $20 a month? Is it a monthly subscription or per course? How are you charging?
Right now, I was thinking of it per course, but I am certainly going to be testing other models. So
Yeah.
be
Okay.
very interested in maybe a subscription type of deal. But I know that means a big investment up front because I have some subscriptions myself and I had to really think about them. So,
Yeah, you have to make
you know,
those decisions.
yeah. So I don't want someone to be turned away. If they've got $20, I want there to be an option. So I'll probably have a subscription for someone who thinks I want to take advantage of almost all these courses. And if someone wants to start with one or two courses, they can always upgrade later.
Well, you might consider a price for students, educators, and nonprofits,
Mm.
and just let them, if they're that category, how they qualify is if they have a dedicated domain email that's, whatever .edu or .org if it's a nonprofit. Like they have to they have to prove it, and they have to use that email account with it if they're going to use it.
Oh, yeah. Is that
Yeah.
something you do in your business? Do you have
Yes,
like
yes, I
a
do.
nonprofit price? Yeah, I
No,
might
well,
take a look
yeah,
at that.
yeah, it is helpful. But on my Employers for Change, schools are free, but you have to use the school email address. If the person leaves, then you know that, okay, the account's down,
Mm,
and where they could have their permanent, kind of like your regular email, your personal email is with you for life almost.
right. Right.
The other suggestion, other than give pricing based on that, is you could always put incentives in there. So if they're helping, if they spread a word, and you have as part of your sign up is who told you about this platform, then that could be a way that somebody could
I
maintain.
thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So after people take advantage, as they get to the end of their 30 days, I planned on asking them, would you recommend this? And if you do, you get another free month, or you get,
Yeah, Google
so much
reviews are going to be
credit.
the thing you need. So
Yeah.
yeah, have them do at least like 5 things. I use this with the podcast, and then also with social media. Is like, here's 5 things you can do, and if you
Hmm.
do these 5 things, this is what you get. So one of them is leave a Google review. The other one is leave us a review on LinkedIn, like wherever your people are. That's where it is. Like, subscribe, follow, share, whatever it is that you're telling them to do in your social feeds. That's another really good one.
Yeah.
Tag people so that it helps you, and
With the
post.
SEO thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but if they
Good
tag
idea.
people, that could be somebody that's going to be a lead for you.
Mm.
And if they want to be a brand ambassador, consider setting up maybe, some how you would roll it out, so that there could be like a meetup, and then you would have t-shirts and things like that, so that you're going to go big, Margie. You're going
Yeah.
big.
Swag. Let's get some swag going. I love that
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. And if you don't have the money for t-shirts, which can be expensive, I'm an Asana certified pro. I'm a brand ambassador. They started sending me stickers, and it started with stickers. And then it started with, okay, when I went to their headquarters, I got a t-shirt, and then they send me stickers, and they have this whole education. They built whole communities around it to help take a product to market. And we were not paid, but what they did is they help us get our customers.
Oh,
So you
okay.
could end up
Yeah.
having that as your sales team. Your brand ambassadors are rolling it out, and they're able to help you get bigger.
Well, maybe I'll come back and talk to you about that whole program when I get it figured out, and we can tell people how they can become ambassadors.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I had an intern create that for me, and we use
Yeah.
it.
Great.
A chat could do it for you. Anyway, I want to thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Isabella, and thank you everyone who's listening. And I look forward to seeing you all at my academy. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you to our sponsor, Cat 5 Studios, and thank you to our video production and editing team. Music is by Sophie Lloyd. The Intern Whisperer is brought to you by Employers for Change, helping hiring teams to recruit and upskill their intern talent and employees. Learn more at www.e4c.tech and become a member to reduce hiring bias and improve your company culture through head and heart smart recruitment and learning. Subscribe to the Intern Whisperer today and show your support by sharing our show, tagging a friend to listen, and leaving us comments. You can find the Intern Whisperer podcast on Employers for Change YouTube channel or streaming from your favorite podcast channel.